Welcome back to the 4th episode of How to Get a Guy in 10 Ways podcast. I'm your host, Jenny.
And I'm your host, Danielle.
And today we're diving into how to let him know you're interested. It's a big deal. This is our 4th episode, and I'm excited we're hitting one of the most important topics we could ever talk about when we're just talking about how to move from point A to point B, point A being single to point B being in a healthy relationship. Let me read just a very sweet review someone left us to encourage others to leave us reviews if they feel that this was oh so helpful. Someone sent us, "I have loved listening to the first 3 episodes and I can't wait for the rest. They are so encouraging but also provide such great practical steps." Thank you for sending that, because that's our goal. We want to make this so practical and easy to follow through because we want to take the overthinking out of it.
Yeah, it's not just for attention that we come to you with this podcast. It is, in fact, just for practical tips for you because we care. So we don't like to just listen to ourselves talk. We want this to be useful, a good use of 30 to 45 minutes of your time. So we're so appreciative that the first 3 episodes seemed to hit the mark. So thank you for listening, those that have joined us.
I'm sick, and I was like, I'm going to push through because I care so much about the listeners' relationships.
Amen. And so
I am like, let's door, and I said, I'm still going to show up.
So if you're a fire-breathing dragon, it is not my dog Peanut that's curled up next to me. It is just Jenny fighting for her life on the other side of this camera. But we're here for you because we really believe in this, believe in you being able to go from being single and the goal is to get into a relationship, and we want to be able to help you get there. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening, and welcome to episode 4.
Now, on our last episode, episode 3, we talked about where do we find good men? And I just felt it was really appropriate, since we talked about the difference between putting yourself in the right place at the right time and the difference between that and stalking someone. So I felt it was appropriate that Danielle share what was happening in the background of us recording that very
episode. The thing is, I was the pot calling the kettle black. Not because I was stalking someone in search of a man, but because I had a very important package being delivered that the UPS guy needed to give me. And so, he was well past the estimated time, and is one of the packages I had to sign for. So Jenny and I were sat in front of my back door to my patio that can see the package room in my apartment. And more me than her, but I really just was like, you also have to have your eyes out there. We're stalking this UPS guy. And we did catch him when he came. I literally was holding Jenny's baby. And I go, grab this, and ran out the door.
Take child to me so she can run outside.
Like a football, threw that baby, said, you catch, I got to go sign for a package. And then the next day, I was out at a coffee shop. It was only about 3 minutes from my house, so it kind of makes sense. And I literally saw the UPS guy that we were stalking the day before out and about. I guess he was delivering other packages to this kind of it has a lot of stores and restaurants by my house. So then I texted Jenny and I was like, I think now I'm stalking right after we told you guys not to stalk. So
embarrassing.
Listen to what I say, not what I do. And don't stalk your delivery drivers, especially if you want to date them. I definitely think he recognized me there because he watched me also run across the grass by my house the day before. And so he looked suspicious. Yeah. He looked like he was like, no, she's doing this on familiar. So if I had wanted, if I'd wanted to date him, that would not be an effective strategy. So no stalking, but I had to confess to you all that I did unintentionally and intentionally stalk my delivery driver.
Yes, and it's all in the spirit of being honest. We just want to be as honest as possible.
We want to be vulnerable with you as you're vulnerable with us on your dating journey.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And as we talk about women showing interest in men, maybe some of you are a little confused of saying, well, I really want the man to pursue me. Why would I show interest? I don't necessarily want to scare him off or think that I want to lead everything or initiate everything, don't worry. We're going to talk about every ounce of that. But women have been doing this for millennia. This is nothing new. There is nothing wrong with showing interest in a man. And we're not saying this as a feminist statement saying, oh, women can do everything that a man can. Why couldn't women do this first? That's just not true. We're saying women can put feelers out there and give a guy the green light to say, if you ask me out, I'd say yes in
Mm.
more indirect or direct ways. There's nothing wrong with that. The most common biblical example we have of that is probably going to be no surprise to anyone, but it's Ruth and Boaz. And dating was not, in the Bible as it is today. Such different systems. There barely was any dating in the Bible. But Ruth made it very clear to Boaz by laying at his feet on the threshing floor after a party in her best dress that she wanted to marry him. And this was for many reasons. This wasn't just like, I'm just so attracted to you. It was like, I'm a widow. I want to keep the family line going. I want to provide for my family. You have the resources. You are in our family clan. So many different reasons than we would do today. But she said, in a time where this was so uncommon, she said, yes, I would really like you to marry me. And God honored her for that. Isn't that so crazy that in a culture where there is absolutely no reason for a woman to put herself out there like that, that God actually honored this woman for being so bold?
Mm. You can definitely still be pursued while letting them know you like them. Like Jenny said, she's an example in our notes of like dropping the hanky in Victorian terms, but it was literally like you would. I feel like this is in movies and stuff. You'd like drop your little like handkerchief, and the man would walk by, and he's like, "Oh, is this yours?" And you're like, "Oh my goodness," you know what I mean? Like I must have silly me dropped something, and then you're having a conversation. I remember when I was on a cruise and I thought this guy was so cute. I saw him sitting at a show and I wrote my number on a napkin and I went up to him and I was like, "Oh, I think you dropped something." And I like handed him my number.
Good for you.
And yes, and he ended up like, I think he used my number to find my Snapchat after. And after that, I was like, that's really none of my business because I think he lived like a different state. It was really like, it's kind of like camp loves or camp crushes. It was like a cruise crush. So I was like already over it. But I used the tactic and it did work. I think my dad was with me too. My dad's like, "You go, girl." It was really pretty. I was like, "Thanks, Dad." Like, I was just like, I'm going to do it. But honestly, I'm like, think about how many people you see on a regular basis that you're like, maybe they're attractive. But you wouldn't ask out every single person that you see that you're like, they're kind of cute. So we have to imagine that from a guy's perspective. If they're the ones that like are kind of expected to make that first move and ask people out most of the time, they might have not even considered like, oh, she's going to be interested, I'm going to pursue her, because they're not going to ask out every single person they think is cute. So just because they haven't made like an obvious move doesn't mean they couldn't be interested or they don't think you're cute. It's just maybe they haven't opened that door yet. So by showing a little interest, a little flirtatious interest, or just kind of showing that that door is open, you give way to pursuit. The other thing is if maybe someone makes a first move, you can also respond with like another gesture that also doesn't mean you're leading the relationship. So we want to take away this idea that you can't be pursued, because in movies, I feel like what you see is like this one guy, these are the romance movies, and he like sees a girl and all of a sudden it's like obsessive. And if he wasn't attractive, we'd all be like, "You're going
That's
to
really
jail."
weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're freaking weird. Why do you like automatically see her and you know nothing about her? You're just infatuated with her. You show up random places. You're doing all these crazy things. And if you were ugly, we'd all be like,
Yeah.
"Pervert, jail time. Get
As you
out of this
say that,
movie."
I'm thinking of The Notebook. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where, what's his name? Noah.
Yes, Noah.
He sees the girl on a Ferris wheel and like risks his life to go talk to her by jumping on the cart.
And she's
I
on a
don't
date
want,
with another guy.
yes. And I do not
Like,
want anyone to come away from this expecting that to happen. Because if he wasn't cute, we would say that's so scary. What a
mhm.
terrifying psychopath that would do that.
Yes, don't be persuaded by these attractive movie actors that that's what you want, because it's probably not actually what you want in real life, and it's also not how things work in real life, this like relentless pursuit. And so I think we sometimes think that that's what we want, but that feels stalkerish. And for everyone but maybe like one person you've ever seen that could do that to you, you'd be like, get away from me. I'm blocking you on
Yeah.
all the social media. So
Yeah.
we have to kind of change our perspective on what realistic pursuit means. And that I think will also help shift of like, what's my role in being pursued? You have to show that you're open to being pursued, because
Yeah.
also a normal guy that's not a stalker is not going to relentlessly try to like manipulate you
Yeah.
into going out with him through various large grand schemes.
Yes. And we would even call that love bombing. It's like super
Mm,
grand gestures right in the beginning of not even knowing someone. You don't even want that. You don't even want that in real life. But the number one reason why people don't show interest is that they're ultimately afraid of it not being reciprocated. Valid. But if you feel that as a listener, go back, listen to episode number 2 that we recorded called Reframe Rejection. We give you a wonderful pep talk of how to overcome that. And then we just want to take the pressure off of you. If you've known this person for a long time, or you're just seeing this person in public, or you've seen them a few times, they're in your, mutual friend group, whatever, just detach yourself from the results because you're not there yet. If you have shown zero interest to them, remind yourself that the stakes are so low at this point. It's like if it isn't reciprocated, you will be able to move on fairly quickly. And this
yeah,
is not going to be detrimental to you. So we
no,
really are just empowering you to get out there and start doing things that show interest so that hopefully they can turn into something.
yeah. You want to be able to differentiate between like, oh, this is going to crush me. And this is like one night of like a tub of ice cream. And I talk to my friends about it. And the next day, I unfollow him on
Yeah.
Instagram. And okay, there are funny stories later. After you put yourself out there, you do certain things. I know it doesn't seem like now. So, again, go back and listen to episode 2 if you're still kind of like, oh, like I'm afraid of what it'll do to me or how I'll look or everything else. And we want to tackle that first before you're in the phase where you're like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to make a move.
And there is no reason for women to be complaining, like, why don't more guys come up to me? Why don't they come over to me? Aren't they supposed to pursue me? But if you're wrestling with this fear of rejection and it not being reciprocated, think about how scary that is for a guy potentially, that they're expected to do this more. So it's a lot of pressure. And if you're able to do something, even a little something, to alleviate some of that pressure, you are more likely to make a connection. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
read a quote from a book that really impacted my life. It's called Captivating, written by Stacey Eldridge. I will put the link in the show notes because this book, hello, is really just inner healing in how many pages is this? In 235 pages. So if you're feeling like I might need some more healing in this area, great book. But one woman wrote to Stacy and said, I am afraid that I and numerous other women have interpreted womanly purity as completely ignore the man you're interested in until he proposes to you. And Stacy said, and why then would he propose to you? It's exactly right. I mean, I definitely believed that growing up, that I don't know if you have ever heard this, Danielle, growing up, but I heard, don't worry about the guys. The guys will worry about the girls, whatever, but don't worry about the guys. You just seek God. God will bring you the husband you need.
He'll
And
drop it right in your lap.
yes, exactly. So that's a nice thought. And what they're really intending to say is like, God is involved in your love story, which is true. But what that phrase really shows people is you don't have to do a thing. You just sit back, ignore guys. The right one will come to you, which in practical terms does not make much sense.
No, I haven't seen that work out. I mean, maybe some people that's happened to, but the majority of it, I don't think. My story that didn't happen, your story that didn't happen, we're kind of looking around. I was also thinking when you were saying that quote of the Taylor Swift song Gorgeous. And she's a line there that says, "You should take it as a compliment that I'm talking to everyone here but you." And I'm like, isn't that how sometimes we act? It's like you then ignore the person that you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like interested in them. I think they're so cute. You should take it as a compliment that I'm not even talking to you. But I feel like that's so opposite of what we're like looking for. There's this phrase like manic pixie dream girl. Have you heard of that phrase,
I've
Jenny?
only heard that phrase from you.
Okay, maybe some of my other Tumblr users back in the day will understand this phrase, but a manic pixie dream girl, you're like the one in the movies who like changes the guy's perspective, or like he didn't think he'd be interested in you at first, or like, she's ugly without her glasses, but she's so different. She's not like anyone else. And I think that sometimes when we're the main character of our own life, we think we're in this movie, we're like, oh, I'm like they're just gonna like, no, I'm just gonna be so like mysterious and secretive, and like some guy's just gonna be like, oh, like gotta have her,
I
she's just gonna
have to find
change,
out what she's about.
she's so different, like she's not like the other girls, she's gonna like totally, she like smokes cigarettes, or she like whatever, you know what I'm saying, like in the
Yeah.
movies where it's just like she skateboards, like she's so just wow, like it's just this total, but we sometimes, I think, like internalize that, and when we're the main character in our own life and the main character of our own story, we make ourselves our own manic pixie dream girl. We really think where it's like they're just gonna get the hint because I'm like the main character, they're gonna know one time that like I think they're so cute, they're gonna, I don't know if this is making sense to other people, but for me, I feel like that was probably sometimes things I thought where I'm like, oh, guys will just know I'm interested in them. But I'm like, I'm only the main character in my own head. I'm like, everyone else is living in their own reality. They
Yeah.
don't know what I'm thinking. This movie's not about me. So it's not, we're not going to end up like that. So I think, again, we take a lot of our romance ideas from books and movies, and they're totally like unrealistic with things that we would want in real life, that we would do in real life. And so if that's something that you're maybe realizing while we're talking here, maybe it's a good idea to think through like, what are the things about dating that I've taken, like what expectations do I have about pursuit, about dating, about a man asking me out, that like is not, what's not living up to my expectations in real life? Like, where am I comparing things to unrealistic standards? Because sometimes that's also why I think maybe the situation doesn't feel perfect to you, or maybe like you're like, I don't want to let them know because in my ideal world I would never have to let my husband know first that I'm interested in him. And that's kind of like, I think 40 years down the road, if you're married to that person, that would never be, you would never think about that. You would never be like, this is such an integral part of my life that it has to happen. So I think maybe untangling our romance expectations might also be really helpful in kind of paving the way to be like, okay, I am fine with letting someone know I'm interested in that. I've tackled this idea of rejection, and now I'm like tackling this idea of what I think about romance and how this whole dating thing goes. And then I really think that letting a guy know you're interested is going to come a little easier.
Yeah. A lot of times we'll say, God is completely in control. He will bring the man that I want to me. And that's where things get a little messy because, yes, God is sovereign and he has divine providence. He provides for all we need. But there is this mixture of we also have free will. So if you are expecting God to do all the heavy lifting in your dating life, then you're missing out on a lot of fun, actually. It's not just like you're missing out on God's plans for you. it's like you're missing out on the partnership you get to have with God. That maybe you've been told, like me, like, oh, don't worry about it. God will just bring him to you. But you get to partner and say, okay, well, God will provide for me. And now I get to like show interest and go on dates and have fun with people and get to know new people and have new connections and grow as a person instead of just doing what you've always done in the same patterns, expecting someone to just show interest in you when you are not telling the world that you're even available in the first place.
Mm. I also think with that, there's this idea, and everyone kind of has a different view of what they feel about soulmates. But for me, and Jenny, I don't know if you agree with this, I don't necessarily believe in you have one soulmate. You know, you might miss them, or you are destined to be with them, because I don't think we'd have to make a covenant to another broken person if God was like, oh, I already destined two people to for sure be together. Because then we would have to be like, okay, well, we had no choice in the matter. We had no options to choose from. God decided this from the beginning. And I think we're all broken people that were on a journey with the Lord towards healing and restoration of shalom in our life in the world. And so being in a relationship is finding another broken person that the Lord is also healing. So I say this because some of you might also be like, okay, I'm waiting for God to drop someone out of the sky because he has the soulmate for me waiting. And I think that's a very limiting idea of what God intended for romance and what, I think sometimes it can trip up our dating life because then you think I have to sit and wait instead of believing like, okay, I can marry really plenty of amazing men, but I'm going to choose someone that I am then going to choose to make a covenant with. And so by having that choice, by having that free will and inviting God into that, like Jenny said, then it becomes a partnership. And that's why marriage and relationships are so beautiful, because you're making a choice and then you're leaning on God to help you fulfill that lifelong commitment when you do get to marriage. Lots of guys also think that putting yourself out there is attractive. It's not just practical of like, okay, like, maybe they're experiencing rejection, maybe they're shy, maybe they're afraid. Plenty of guys like the idea of someone being like, I'm interested in you. Maybe some of you are more shy or more, like that would be like, oh, whatever. But some of you might be like, I love being really independent. I am assertive in my normal life. Well, what a great way for a guy to find those great qualities out about you right when you start dating. Because I think then maybe if that's your personality more, then you might find a guy that's like, I really like those qualities in you. Like, wow, like that's some of my favorite things. And so I think you're doing yourself a disservice because plenty of guys think being assertive instead of being abrasive is a really, really attractive quality in a woman.
And ultimately, that is so much more romantic to take a risk, to say, I'm going to risk a little bit so I can potentially get to know you.
Yeah.
And you would want that from a guy too, saying, wow, he like made the effort to try to choose me. That's what you want. You don't just want God to say, that's your future wife, and then you don't feel like you have a choice because that guy's like, yeah, we're destined to be married. What?
God has told me that you are my wife. And
That's
then
a
it's like,
really confusing, scary statement.
that is, it may sound flattering from like some 6'5"
Yeah.
hunk, I
It
guess.
may
But again,
sound easy. It sounds the easiest.
ladies, imagine if you don't think he's attractive. Are these statements sounding good? No, that's when you can
Oh,
tell the red flags. If I didn't find him attractive, would this be icky to me? And that's something you have to think about. Don't be fooled by some attractive guys. But I even think of both of our stories, Jenny, and we both put ourselves out there or paved the way to be pursued. So you're talking to two women that were pursued. I definitely feel like Connor pursued me while we were dating. I definitely felt like, I had the fun part of dating where I felt like he was like getting interested in me and would ask me out. But I was also behind the scenes kind of like setting it up to like put ourselves in situations with friends so that we could be around each other more, or kind of like giving him the eyes at like events where it's just like, oh, like I want you to notice I'm noticing you, so that he felt that reciprocation and wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to go ask out like a wall, because I legitimately have no idea if she's open, if she's single, if she was interested in me at all. And I felt very pursued.
The main thing that you're doing by taking a shot is you're ultimately just asking for clarity. You're saying, I'm willing to risk a little bit to show a little bit of interest. And then, do you want to also show interest in me? This goes even for strangers meeting. So sometimes you don't get that reciprocated, but other times it works out. And there are these moments in your life where you could probably think back to, what if I didn't choose that? What if I didn't do that that day? What if showing interest in the next guy that you find interesting is a pivotal moment and really works out in the long run? You don't want to miss out on that. And then there are other times where it does not work out, which will be more often than it working out. But that's okay, because ultimately you get the clarity faster and then you're able to move on quicker. So
And
I
it can't
remember,
work out with everyone.
no, you only wanted to work out with one, really.
Yeah, you can only have one. So if it did work out
Yeah,
with everyone, we'd have a problem
that'd
on
be a
our
problem.
hands.
Yep. I remember one time um, in college, there was a guy who I think was a grade below me. And so I would see him around the hallways, had very little interaction with him, was not ugly whatsoever. And then he followed me on Instagram. And he didn't just follow me. He went through some of my recent photos and liked a few. So I was like, okay, you went through, you saw my face. You said like on these things. So I just thought, I'm just going to introduce myself.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna see what he meant by that. Whatever. And I'm just gonna see what happens. So I basically went up to him the next time I saw him and I said, I saw you liked. I said I don't remember the exact words. Hopefully it came out better than this, but saw you
He has
stalking
his
my
own
Instagram.
podcast about
Exactly.
what happened
Yeah.
today.
I said, so I saw you liked some of my photos on Instagram. And I did get the clarity I needed that he did not mean it in a romantic way whatsoever, because he got a little defensive and said, yeah, I do that with everyone I follow. I was like, okay, great. Nice to meet you. So I immediately got the clarity. Guess what? It didn't hurt at all. It
Yeah.
didn't hurt at all. I just thought, I'll just throw a little line out there and see what happens, you know? And then I'm thinking of, as we were writing this episode, both Danielle and I thought of many, many
Yes.
scenarios where we shot our shot and it did not work out. But we're ultimately very glad we did it anyway, because now we get to tell you guys about it.
Yes. And sometimes it's like, I think I had like a few guy friends even that through the years, I think it was like in high school or whatever, I had a crush on. And then eventually I would just like say it over text. And mind you, it was probably like 2 a.m. Like you're just like
You're like, this will
16.
definitely work.
This is going to give me the clarity I need. This is the best way to go about this. And I definitely don't recommend doing that. I probably was the creeper in that situation. And I don't think that ever came back with it's like, oh, yeah, I'm interested in you back. But I also lived to tell about it. And I stayed friends with multiple people that I had done that with. I guess this sounds like I did it to so many people, but I'm like, I probably can think of at least two off the top of my head of like guys that I said I was interested in and they were not interested in me back. And so we lived to tell about it. And now Jenny are laughing about it hysterically because did it actually have any impact on our identity or lives or anything at all? No.
No.
Maybe they all have their own podcast about like these creepy girls who are giving dating advice.
Maybe.
And how they're like, they were not our manic pixie dream girl, but they were someone else's. I hope that all of our viewers now are going to understand Urban Dictionary, Manic Pixie Dream Girl, nothing inappropriate, but now you guys are all going to know.
Mhm.
And we weren't their Manic Pixie Dream Girl, but we were two other wonderful men's Manic
Yes,
Pixie Dream
at
Girls,
one time.
and it worked out.
Really worked out. I remember this one guy, this was early on in college. We were like in the same mutual friend group, had a lot of mutual friends, and had hung out in groups before. Like, pretty soon before the summer was approaching, I was leaving for summer break. I started to feel like, oh, I think he's treating me a little bit different than usual, like showing more interest in me, making an effort to be around me, things like that. So I sensed that from him, but I didn't necessarily get the direct line of I like you. So I was curious. I wanted to learn more because I thought potentially I could be interested. I'm not sure. I just got to know what he means. So then I leave for the summer and I message him a few times on, I think, Facebook Messenger because I'm seeing, okay, is he going to continue the conversation? Does he like actually want to get to know me? Because now I'm gone for the summer. And I remember a couple weeks going by and nothing in our conversation really panning out into something interesting. And so I told one of my friends about it. She's like, well, we should definitely pray that you get the clarity we need. And I was like,
Mm,
yeah, I just want to know at this point. I don't want to entertain these imaginations in my head of how he feels about me when I don't actually know. So we prayed there, and I think this was a phone call. So we prayed on the phone, and then immediately I hang up the phone, and then I go check my Facebook Messenger again. And I find that in that instant, he had changed his status to in a relationship with someone who is on campus. And I was like, I called a friend back. I was like, God answered my prayer. I got the clarity I needed.
it's not always the clarity you wanted, but
No,
it's the
but
clarity you
exactly what I prayed for.
needed.
Yes. So I was bummed because this was maybe a couple months of wondering and waiting.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, then I got over it within a week or two, you know? And now I look back and I laugh because I'm that was one of the first times I was intentionally trying to figure it out myself instead of
Yeah.
just waiting and doing nothing and hoping something would happen. And then I got exactly what I needed. I was able to start the next school year completely fresh. And then guess what? I started dating Joe very soon after that.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? So ultimately, when you choose, dear listeners, when you choose what actions you're going to pick to show interest in someone, just think, what would this feel like if someone was doing this to me? Would I be creeped out or would I be flattered by this action? Because someone showing interest feels very flattering, even if it's not reciprocated, and even if that person's like, oh, I'm actually taken, or I'm not in your age group, or whatever the reason is. In many ways, it's flattering. Oh, someone was interested in me. And then you just go on with your day knowing, like, hang on. Where was I? Okay, I'll say it was very flattering.
Yeah. Wait, I have a funny story that I.
Because ultimately, it's very flattering when someone shows interest in you. I bet that you can think of several times in your life where someone has thrown a bone your way and you're like, oh, you're actually possibly interested. And it just kind of makes your day, even if that didn't pan out or you weren't interested back. It does make you feel good.
Mm-hmm. Now, ladies, I'm going to be incredibly vulnerable with you. I'm going to tell you the story of one of my camp crushes and the downside of not letting someone know you're interested in them. Okay. So I go to camp. I've got a camp crush. Okay. He's really cute. He is, I don't know, popular. He's a year older than me. I'm like, this is probably the love of my life. You know, you see him worshiping at the front. You're like, yes, a man of
Yes.
God, and probably speaking in tongues up there. Jenny and I grew up AG. I'm just like, wow, really filled with the Spirit. So, you know, he was in kind of like the friend group. So we would orchestrate things where, you know, we'd be together and camp, reunion events, yada, yada, yada. Okay. One day he comes to the beach with me and my brother. And now, mind you, I had a best friend that I would go to camp with, and she's beautiful, one of the most beautiful people I've ever seen in my life. Okay, so the guys liked her, so I'm texting her while we're out. She knows about this crush, and we're at the beach. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's like looking at all these girls, like, oh my goodness, whatever. I'm like so horrified. I'm like trying to like get his attention on me. Okay, now mind you, then we're in the car on the way to drop him back off at his house, and
Oops.
he sees I'm texting my friend, and he's like, oh my God, give me your phone. Like, let me text her. Okay. Probably thinks she's cute, rightfully so. And I'm almost positive, no, I am basically 100% positive he saw the text messages where I'm telling her about all the other girls he's looking at. Okay. And I think he like pretended he couldn't see them anyway. Now, mind you, then it's like 6 months later, I give him one of those 2 a.m. I have a crush on you night, like text, okay?
Oh, no.
He's not interested, lets me down easy, nice. I find out like a year later, talking to some of my other friends, rightfully so, that he was telling people I was obsessed with him, okay?
Oh.
So ladies, learn from my 16-year-old stalking mistakes. Maybe I was 15, regardless. Learn from my stalking mistakes. Maybe if I hadn't been so creepy and told him right away my feelings, I would have saved myself this obsessive reputation I was getting with the camp boys, because I was being obsessive and stalkery. So being vulnerable, being open, you can make yourself seem crazier the longer you're obsessing over someone and not just letting them let you down easy, get over that crush, move on. I think it was like a year of my life I spent like obsessing over this guy. So
First
learn from
camp
me.
guys, then UPS guys. Who's next?
Where does it end, really? I think what we're getting from this podcast is I just have stalking tendencies. That's what we're learning. Okay, ladies, we are going to give you some practical lines, some pickup lines, if you will. They're not really pickup lines. You can, if you want, use a pickup line. I think that would be cute and funny. But if you're wanting to go the more indirect route, you could invite them out to a group hangout.
Text them, hey, this group and I are going out to do this thing. Do you want to come?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. When you're in person, you can kind of like steer the conversation in ways where maybe you guys have a similar hobby or similar interest, and it's not like very obvious that you're like maybe asking them out or whatever, but you guys are like building kind of things that you both can have conversation on. The best is if you can happen to build an inside joke.
You can always steer your conversations into the direction of dating, like saying, oh, they mentioned a place, you say, oh, that's a great date spot. Or, push it towards that direction so that you start talking about dating in general. You find out if they're single, how it's going, know that you're single, that you're available, that you could be interested. You just get it going in that direction.
Yeah.
You could also give them a call on the phone about something very practical, unrelated, that friends would talk about.
Yeah, just be like, I noticed the air in your tires were low.
Yes,
and
I was thinking of car stuff too.
Or a question. It's probably you shouldn't notice the airs in their tires. Ladies,
my tires are completely slashed because I slashed them myself.
If you are figuring out what car they have without them letting you know in an obvious way, that's a red flag. If you've got his license plate number memorized, call it a day. Don't be slashing his tires to have something to call him about. That's what I will say.
I'm thinking like, okay, there's this light on in my car. You could call, say, hey, do you know what this light is on? Or, let's say you're friends and it's not weird. You're not calling a stranger about car problems.
Mm-hmm.
You could see if the conversation goes a little bit longer about other things too. And I think that I watched a rom-com. I'm not sure which one, but I think the way they started talking was this girl disconnected something under the hood of her car so that she could just stand there and like look at her car and be like, what's wrong with it? I just don't know. And then she saw him in the parking lot and was, hey, could you help me fix my car?
Yeah.
I think at the end of the movie he was like, I know you unplugged that on purpose.
And that's a funny story later on. I think one of the first times Connor and I ever hung out in person, he had been DMing me, but then I needed to drop my car off at a car repair shop for some reason. And I was like, hey, it's middle of the day. All my other friends have class. It was literally only like 5 minutes from campus. I was like, would you be willing to just pick me up from the car place? I don't have anyone else I can get a ride from. And he did that twice. He ended up picking me up and driving me back because it happened to be the same time where all my friends had class. And
I just suddenly don't have any friends when
I just chose a silly time when everyone else was booked. And it was a very like mild inconvenience. So I wasn't like asking him to drive me to Timbuktu, but it was something where it was like super like, hey, we're talking. Could you help me out with this? Pretty indirect. I think that would work even if you weren't talking all the time one-on-one.
Right.
Good strategy.
Another thing that's maybe a little bit indirect is just pay them simple compliments, kind of like, I always smile when I'm around you, or thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. That was really sweet. But you only say those things if you actually mean them. You don't just say, I'm having such a great time when you don't want to see them again at all. So if you really mean something, just say it so that they know you are fond of their presence.
Yeah. Or like, nice haircut. Like, your shirt looks really good today. Like, oh, that's like a nice outfit on you. You could also compliment their physical features, and in a way that's not like, you are so sexy looking right now. And it's less weird.
Less weird than that.
Yeah.
If you want to go the more direct route, we do have lines for that too. Don't worry.
Oh, yeah. We've got lines for that. The more direct route, I guess this isn't an actual line, but flirt with them. Lay it on thick. This is my preferred method. I'm going to be honest. Flirting is fun. When I was dating, I loved to flirt with someone I was interested in. I wasn't like flirting with everybody. But ladies, you can flirt. Start a little joke. Have an inside joke. Like, when I first started like being interested in Connor, we were at a group event where him, another girl, and I were talking. And this other girl and I started making fun of him for something, and it became like an inside joke. So then he ended up posting something on his Instagram story, and I responded with something part of the inside joke because it kind of went with the story, something we were making fun of him for. And it was a great way to like continuously be in front of him getting in an inside joke. But if I didn't put myself out there and start talking to him at this event, flirting, if you will, giving him my best lines,
giving the old razzle dazzle,
becoming his manic pixie dream girl, then who knows what would have happened?
It's true. There are a lot of lines that you could just plant an idea in his mind and then kind of leave the ball in his court and see if he follows up. So you could say, we should get coffee sometime, and just kind of leave it at that. Or you could say, I would totally go out with a guy like you. That's pretty direct, but you could do it.
Or I'm even thinking you want to go the more social media route. Say he posts an activity on his story, be like, I love to do that. We should go sometime. I love to watch the sunset. I love to go biking. Would you ever want to go sometime? That's also just opening the door to something like friends that could end up being a date. You can have friends set you up and be like, hey, they're interested. Would you want to go on a date with them? That's pretty direct. There's indirect ways to do that, of things just, friends helping you make things like casually happen. But there's also very direct ways of your friends being able to be involved, of being like, hey, they're interested. They maybe know the guy better. I think that's a great strategy if you're ready to be assertive.
Yeah. If you work in any form of coffee or food service and you think this customer is really cute, better if they're a regular customer, but you could leave your name and number on their order. Why not?
That's the cutest thing ever, because it's so, you don't even have to say anything. You leave your number with a smiley face, and it's great. I one time was in the Starbucks drive-through line, and the guy in front of me left his paid for my order, and left his, mind you, he left his Snapchat on top of, like, gave it to the barista to give to me. And so I was already dating someone, and also it was a Snapchat. So many red flags. Ladies, we're giving numbers. We're not doing Snapchat anymore. But I was like, that's a great way to ask someone out.
Yeah.
Like, how is he going to get out of the car and be like, oh, she's cute behind me?
Yeah.
Paid for my
You
$5
and men
coffee.
in cars. That is so funny.
Something about what I'm doing in a car is really just drawing the men in. So, ladies, if I figure it out, I will tell you on this podcast what I'm doing in a car, but something about it's working, okay? Yeah. And the other funny thing is I was sitting with a friend in the car, and he only paid for my drink. I don't know how he figured out.
Yeah, how do you figure that out?
I think he maybe paid for half. And they were just like, oh, the other one of you has to pay for the other drink. I'm like, I don't even know how that happened. But anyway, these are things that you could also do that are super indirect. And if they never call you, what did it cost you $5? If you're working in service, what did it cost? You wrote on a marker your number and your name. I think it's absolutely awesome ways to ask someone out. And if you want your movie moment, if you're like, oh, I want this romantic movie, me cute, those two are very much things that I feel like are exactly that.
Yeah, they are. I know one of my friends, her and her husband, back when they were just volunteering at church together, they had conversations before, but then he just slid into her DMs and just said, coffee or tea? Was it so? I was like, that is so sure of yourself and a great way to just rip off the Band-Aid. I just thought that was really good.
Yeah. You can message someone, say, I don't want to beat around the bush anymore. I think you're cute. Would you want to go on a date? And again, ladies, that still opens up the opportunity for a man to pursue you. I don't even think if you go as far as even being the one to ask someone out, you're past paving the road, you're past just letting them know you're interested, you can still be pursued. That is still something that you can have, that you want. You could still have a man bring you are going to have to also pursue each other throughout marriage. So the idea that just a man will pursue in general is also not very realistic, because your whole marriage, you're going to be pursuing each other. So start that in your early relationship of not expecting it all to be on the guy. And if you want to go for it, Jenny and I say absolutely go for it.
Yep. Also, if you want to send a friend over to talk to that guy, your friend doesn't have to say, this person is interested in you, you should ask her out. It could be a little bit more indirect, like, I notice you guys get along together when you hang out. I feel like if you asked her out, she'd say yes. Thoughts?
Love that. Absolutely love that. Your friends can be your biggest help in dating.
Or your demise.
Yeah, or your demise. Some people, yes, could be your demise. But honestly, ladies, we need to all stick together. We need to be each other's wing women. You need to be just as help your friends in that way, in the same way. Mm-hmm. We're all working together to get our man.
Yep.
Our men. I guess we're not all going for one single man. Yeah. The UPS guy.
Yes. You could also take them up on their recommendations. So if you had a conversation with this guy that he was like, I love this movie or this place or this show, you can then intentionally watch that or go to that place, try that food. Then you have that conversation starter. Say, I took your recommendation and I loved this, whatever it was. Then you have you have a conversation, and you're showing them, I listened to what you say.
Yeah, I think what you do is interesting, and I'm interested in you and it.
And it. But some people have this dilemma going on that's a little specific, that say, what if you're already really good friends and now you've developed feelings? Does all this apply to that too? Because you feel like you're risking a little bit more.
Yeah. I definitely believe that there is an idea, that there is such thing as the friend zone. Some people don't believe in that. Some people do. It's not really a big deal if you do or don't. But the idea is, I think you can get used to seeing someone in a platonic fashion by just practicing doing that. Like if someone was in a relationship before and they're single, maybe you think they're cute. Or think about it, when you're then married, you practice seeing everyone of the opposite sex as a platonic relationship. So I think sometimes we can train our brains either by happenstance or intentionally to view the opposite sex as just platonic friends, even if we think they're cute or whatever. So I think the longer you might stay stuck in that, the worse it's going to be. So we would recommend that you need to find out earlier than later if there is a chance of romance. That rhymed. If there's a chance of romance. I love that. This is also better for your friendship in the long run, instead of like pining over someone for such a long time, and then your feelings are like to 100, and even if they start liking you, it's gonna start from zero. You're gonna be so far ahead, and I think it ultimately destroys the friendship the longer you hold on to something, because you are just having so many unresolved feelings that manifest in so many different ways. And then I think when that person maybe gets in another relationship, other girls can tell
Yeah.
when maybe you have a crush on their boyfriend, and then they probably aren't going to be comfortable with you being friends
Yeah.
with him because
Yeah.
you're being weird, and you might not think it, but you're being weird.
Yes. There comes a point where if you are continuing to do nothing and to just let these feelings grow, there comes a point where you're just not being honest anymore.
Yeah.
You keep saying, yeah, we're friends, but you're just lying to yourself and other people. So if you're able to find out soon if there is a chance of that developing into something more, it's better to just do that, rip off the Band-Aid. More chance of you guys, if it does not work out, to just continue being friends.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be weird if you're both mature. If you do the disservice for both of you of doing nothing for a very long time and just kind of lying to yourself and not even attempting to go there, then your feelings are going to be really, really hurt. This guy's going to be completely shocked and really alarmed that this has been going on for so long and he had no idea. And then things will be weird. You probably can't be friends after that.
Yes, because imagine being in a relationship with someone else, but you have unresolved feelings for this person because they festered for so long. Or you're like in love with them at this point and you've never said anything. And now it'd be kind of weird if you did, because of all the times you hang out or see each other or have done things. Sometimes it also might feel like for your friend, they've always had ulterior motives and they've never been my actual. There's so many different ways it can go, and it's usually never good.
Yeah.
Because usually if both people are interested in each other, that is going to cave at some point. So better to start on the honest foot. Hey, I think you're cute. Would you ever be interested in like seeing if this could be romantic? If they say no, you got your answer, and it's not as weird as I've been in love with you for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
What do you think about me? And so those are
Do
two
you like
totally
me? Check
different
yes or no.
conversations.
Yes.
Yes. And it also, again, guards your heart, because I think we also have a tendency as humans to kind of obsess and ruminate over things that could be and the what if. And when we have a definite answer, it allows us to move on, move forward. Because maybe honestly, you can't be in that friendship because you can't get over someone and be in that friendship. Well, at some point, you have to move on. So, if you're good friends and you've developed feelings or you've had feelings for a long time, we recommend telling that person, if it's appropriate, as soon as possible. Sometimes this is tricky because sometimes you have unresolved feelings and they're in a relationship. In that case, probably tell your therapist and your girlfriends and work through it. I don't think it's probably appropriate to tell this person because they can't act on it. And I do think it's something you need to do. It's not something they need to hear.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfair to them to have to kind of like be confused if they've chosen a relationship.
So we've talked about ways that you can be more assertive in showing that you are interested. And there are wrong ways to show that you are interested. Those ways would be where you're coming on like abrasive or forceful, or you're prematurely expressing really strong feelings. You want to stay away from those as much as possible. So how do you know if you're being abrasive and not just assertive? Abrasive sounds like you will not stop calling or texting him, and he's not replying, or he's replying with one-word answers, giving you the signal that he's probably not interested in continuing conversation for very long.
The other ways are maybe in person, you're not just paving the way, you're monopolizing all his conversations. You're following him everywhere he goes. You're not giving him space. You see him with another girl, you go over there. Bad ideas,
Oh,
okay? When it gets close to stalking, ladies, that is what we would consider abrasive. We want you to be able to make the first move in a way that feels respectful, assertive, confident, independent, and not in ways that make other people feel uncomfortable. So remember, if you know his ex's second cousin's wedding anniversary, or his license plate, or where he is every Wednesday at 9 a.m., and he hasn't told you those things, we're on the cusp.
you're tiptoeing the line there.
You are on the road to
It's
the
crazy town.
obsessive behavior. And ladies,
Yes.
I've had the reputation. Learn from my mistakes. That guy and I never got together, and rightfully so.
Maybe you think, oh, if I write him a note with all my feelings, I'll feel so much better after I do that. I won't be just keeping this all inside. Well, you may feel better because that could be cathartic to you, but that will not probably be helpful to him to let him know that you're interested, because you may feel like, I just feel better. It's like all out now. It's coming out of left field for him. Or maybe he had an inkling, but now it's like too much. So stay away from the notes where you are pouring everything out really early on, because
Yeah.
it's just
You
not
don't
your
want to
job.
put too much pressure on the situation. Dating at first is light and fun and easy breezy. And I think there's a way that you can communicate feelings, like all things you talked about, without being like, you are my husband, I have decided, or I've had these longings for you for the last 7 moons, and I feel that thou should court me. I think you can let someone know your feelings in no pressure ways. And if you have to write those letters, you need cathartic release, talk to your therapist, or write the letters and don't send them.
Or burn
Get
them.
your weirdness out.
Yeah.
Ladies, you can be weird. Okay, we all have the tendencies to be
Just
weird.
do it in
But
private.
do it under your own roof, in your own four walls, and don't let it see the light of day.
Yeah.
Keep the crazy in.
Yep.
Till he likes you.
Yep. Then you let the crazy out. I'm just kidding.
Then you let the crazy, and they learn to love your crazy. We all love everyone's crazy. Not at first, though. Not at first.
If you are chasing someone, like they are unavailable and you are still pining after them, the answer is clearly no. Just that is your sign to move on. You don't even need him to say no if he is obviously in another relationship, because that is your no. So you get the clarity you need by that alone, then you can move on. You don't have to pine over someone who is obviously unavailable.
If you're DMing him, texting him, he's not responding, or he's responding with one word, or he never messages you first, I wouldn't.
You wouldn't go.
I would stop that. I would say after 2 texts, 3 is being generous, where he's not initiating back or not answering or stops answering, that's the time that we cut it off. That's the time where it's also about respecting yourselves enough to be like, I don't have to pursue someone that's not engaging or doesn't like me, because someone will. Not everyone has to like you. And again, you can go back to the rejection episode, but it's being confident enough in yourself, or being like, I put myself out there. I don't want to be the only one giving to this relationship. And that's when it's going to feel like he's not pursuing you, because he's not. Then we need to respect ourselves enough to be like, okay, a guy that actively will be interested in me. And so don't continue to be like, well, I've put myself out there. There's this like idea of like, oh, well, I have energy invested or time lost, so I'll just continue. It's like the sunk cost fallacy. I'll just continue to lose out on more time and attention and feelings, instead of just cut your losses and move on.
Mm-hmm. You want to stay away from all grand gestures early on because
Mm.
it's not the place nor the time. But that is basically you showing too much interest at too much of an early time.
To wrap this episode up, we are going to be answering one of your questions that Jenny is going to read for us. So, if you've got any questions on dating, we might have some guests. Our husbands might be guests, so you may be able to ask questions that men can answer. We may have a special guest that is a professional in all things dating and matchmaking. So, send in.
Foreshadowing. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So send in your questions both for us, and if we're not qualified, we've got some people on the docket that we feel are really going to be helpful for you, and we can answer them. It's one of the reasons we're releasing them in stages so that you can listen. You're like, I need more help in this area. You haven't answered this, and let us help you. So, Jenny, if you want to read one of our viewers' questions, we can get to answering it.
Yes, so if you have any questions, the link is in the show notes to submit those. Go ahead, we'd love to hear them. This listener said, dating to get to know someone versus friendship to dating. Pros and cons for both. So, the main difference between you're dating to get to know someone versus you were friends and now you start dating is just the level of which you start out by knowing each other. So, pros to going on dates with someone that you don't know very well yet. There is so much to discover. You just go in with curiosity. You have no idea who this person is. So you don't have any specific context for them yet. You could create all new memories together if this goes somewhere. And then you feel as if there's possibly less risk involved because this is a person you just met, someone you don't know very well. You're not going to lose much if this does not work out. The cons to going on dates with someone that you don't know very well, you're just starting from scratch. So that isn't a really big con, I would say. Don't let that discourage you from just going on dates to get to know someone because you have no idea. So you just got to put the effort to show up, to enjoy yourself, to get to know them. And then if it doesn't work out, there isn't really much lost. But if it does work out, you're going to be so happy you put in a little bit of effort to get to know this person.
Mm-hmm. And dating a friend, pros are you already know them, maybe you're more comfortable. For some people, that maybe you're a little more apprehensive or nervous. Maybe that helps calm your fears in dating. You already, other people know this person too. They know your location, where you're at, if something goes wrong. But cons are if it doesn't work out, maybe you have a friend group that it's now awkward with, or you miss this person's friendship. And so I personally don't think that either of those are bad. I think you can date someone you're friends with. There's great pros to it. There's great pros to dating someone you haven't met before. So some of you may be inclined to have a preference, but my suggestion is just be open to both. And both are so exciting. I think the idea of dating is exciting in general. So I wouldn't pigeonhole yourself into one of those because I think you would lose out on a lot of opportunity to find a really wonderful guy by just either being like, I would never date someone I'm friends with, or I would never go on a date with a stranger.
Right. And if you go on a date with your friend, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be friends if it doesn't work out. It just requires a lot of maturity from both sides. So this could turn out great even if you guys don't work out for the long run. But those are the pros and cons. So thank you for listening to our 4th episode of How to Get a Guy in 10 Ways. We have a gift for you. It's in the show notes. It's our playlist that you can follow on Spotify, and then you can play it whenever you're on the way to a new date. So these tunes will get you pumped up, confident, ready to have fun. So you get to follow that, and you're welcome in advance. If you have any questions, use that link to send them. It's in the show notes because we'd love to answer them. If we're not qualified, we could have guests. Hint, hint. We will have a guest, at least one. And then maybe even our husbands will show up at one point to answer some questions. Who knows?
Hard to
We know.
say.
We just foreshadow.
We know we're just trying to be mysterious.
Mysterious.
We're
Manic pixie girls.
we're trying to be your manic pixie dream girls.
And then if you enjoyed the show in any way, please give us a 5-star rating and review. We would love to know if it's being helpful for you. And then that helps it get into the ears of other people that need it too. So you can share this episode on your Instagram story or wherever. Send it to your single friends because we would love to get the love out more, create more connection, less isolation.
Yeah, so thanks for tuning in, and we will see you in the next episode.